What is the difference between crows and ravens? Blackbirds swirling in the sky are hardly ever a welcome sight. Both crows and ravens have deep-rooted appearances, behaviors, and symbolism that pits them as the proverbial bad guys of most narratives. From their fondness for garbage to their association with death, these dark birds are perpetually linked to dark tidings and general spookiness. With these birds' obvious similarities, few people can actually discern between the two. That's where the following video comes in, as we explore everything there is to know about crows and ravens, including the differences between them. Let's get started. Crow 101. Crows are a group of birds that belong to the Corvus genus under the Corvidae family. About 34 of the 46 Corvus species are taxonomically classified as crows. In fact, the term is often used to refer to any Corvus bird. However, the general rule in ornithology is that crow refers to the medium to smaller species in Corvus. Crows are highly adaptable birds, as proven by their global distribution. From the Cape of South Africa to the beaches of the Sea of Azov in Eastern Europe, crows are everywhere human beings are found. Different places of the world have their own variations of crow, especially adapted for that environment. However, the basis is pretty much the same: a wholly or almost entirely black bird with a taste for trouble. In the New World, there is the American crow, or Corvus brachyrhynchos, that shadows towns and cities all over the US, southern Canada, and Mexico. The Tamaulipas crow, Corvus imperatus, is also a common sight along the Gulf of Mexico coast. On Hawaii, there is Corvus hawaiiensis, aka the Hawaiian crow, while the Jamaican crow, Corvus jamaicensis, also enjoys the island vibes of the Caribbean. There are even more crows in the Old World. The house crow, Corvus splendens of Asia and parts of Africa, is a notable example, as is the hooded crow, Corvus cornix of Europe and the Middle East. We also can't forget the pied crow, Corvus albus, arguably the most populous bird in all of Africa. Crows and other Corvus birds are in the Passeriformes order. The term is derived from Latin. Passer means sparrow, while formes means shaped. Like sparrows, crows and their cousins are perching birds with 4 toes on each foot oriented for perching. 3 toes point forward while the 4th points backward, which allows the birds to hold on to a perch. Ornithologists call this toe arrangement anisodactyl. The American crow, which is the most common crow species in the New World, has a bill-to-tail length of about 16 to 20 inches. The tail makes up half of that body length. Weight ranges quite considerably from 11 to 21 ounces, with males occupying the upper end of that spectrum. All crows are renowned for their intelligence and adaptability. They are omnivorous, which means they eat pretty much most of the stuff humans eat. They are equally opportunistic and will hardly ever say no to a free meal. Unfortunately, crows' cunning and eat-anything approach has earned them a bad rap as ratty scavengers and even pests. Not only do crows quickly form flocks, but these flocks can run rampage and cause trouble. Typical activity ranges from raiding and tipping over garbage cans to spreading said garbage around the place, and even leaving disease-spreading poop anywhere they choose. Flocks of crows are also notoriously loud, and with enough numbers can easily ruin a board meeting or class test with their incessant calls. Crows have also been the bane of farmers since time immemorial. They raid crops like corn and, again with sufficient numbers, can significantly reduce harvest yields if not wipe them out altogether. These naughty birds are the precise reason behind the invention of the scarecrow. In many cultures, crows play symbolic and even mythological roles. Civilizations such as ancient Greece and Viking Scandinavia regarded them as the manifestation of major deities like Apollo or Odin. In ancient Egypt, crows were the symbols of love and faithfulness, likely because crows tend to mate for life. Several other pagan cultures regarded them as omens of good fortune. Crows also have negative supernatural links. Several cultures view crows as signs of bad luck, poor harvest, and impending death or destruction. It's no surprise that a group of crows is called a murder. In numerous parts of Africa, crows are believed to be in league with witches, running dark errands for them as diurnal substitutes for owls. Others believe that some witches even shapeshift into crows to fly around during the day and wreak havoc on the community and their enemies. Ravens 101. Ravens are perpetually linked to and mistaken for crows, and for good reason. For starters, ravens also fall under the Corvus genus, which is a recipe for confusion. In fact, along with rooks, ravens make up the rest of the species under the genus. There is only one rook species, Corvus frugilegus. As for the raven species, there are several. There are 9 distinct species around today, distributed all around the world, and some of them have several subspecies. Paleontologists have officially recognized 3 extinct species. Of the species still around, we have the common raven, Corvus corax, forest raven, Corvus tasmanicus, thick-billed raven, Corvus crassirostris, Chihuahuan raven, Corvus cryptoleucus, among others. Ravens are generally larger than crows, and this is why taxonomists keep the 2 birds in the same genus. Rooks are similar to crows in size. The common raven, which is the most common Corvus bird in the world, is found all over the northern hemisphere, from Hawaii to Siberia. There are 8 recognized subspecies, each perfectly adapted for its native region. On average, common ravens range from 21 to 28 inches from bill to tail. Weight ranges between 1.52 and just under 5 pounds. These numbers make ravens both the largest Corvus birds and one of the largest birds in the Passeriformes order. Ravens are also wholly or mostly black, a trait that contributes to their reputation. Like crows, ravens are perch birds with anisodactyl toes. They spend most of their time perched and scanning for opportunities and threats. Ravens are incredibly adaptable and unbelievably smart. Research into raven intelligence is still ongoing, but it's clear that they possess strong cognitive and memory skills. Studies have shown that a 4-month-old raven has almost full cognitive function, and that mature birds have IQs similar to and sometimes greater than apes like chimpanzees and orangutans. Again, like crows, ravens are omnivorous and incredibly opportunistic when it comes to food. They will raid garbage cans and unattended lunch boxes, or even come into the kitchen to see what's cooking. Ravens will also enter open chicken enclosures and kill chicks for a quick snack, or even dig into an exposed carcass or body. Historically, ravens and crows are noted for intelligently following armies headed for battle because they knew a human clash led to a feast. In fact, Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin has a popular book called A Feast for Crows in reference to this very concept. Ravens also go after crops. These clever birds will also figure out that a scarecrow is actually harmless, and soon even more ravens will show up to raid. A group of ravens also has a name with a negative connotation, an unkindness. Human cultures throughout history have linked ravens to the supernatural. Pagan cultures, particularly in the West, have long associated them with death. Ravens are often depicted as harbingers or omens of death, symbols of death itself like the Grim Reaper, or as the cause of death. Adding ravens to a cemetery is a popular trick among directors of cheap horror flicks. Apart from death, ravens are linked with bad luck, witchcraft, and general bad vibes. Doubtless their cunning, black feathers, and love for carrion are key reasons behind this bad rap. However, the perception is not all bad. In Norse mythology, the raven is a symbol of knowledge and information. It also has played a role in the journeys and quests of heroes from Irish and Welsh mythology. In parts of Asia, ravens symbolize royal power and divine authority to rule. In R.R. Martin's books, ravens symbolize a number of things. For one, they are magical agents used to see across time and space. For two, they symbolize death and war. Thirdly, ravens are used as carrier birds to send messages to faraway recipients. It seems the author borrowed their information symbology from Norse mythology rather than actual history. Though intelligent and trainable enough for the job, ravens have never actually been used to relay messages. How are crows and ravens different? So what are the differences between these two birds? Well, the main difference is size. Ravens are bigger than crows. The upper body length and weight ranges of the American crow are on or below the lower ranges of the common raven. The size difference also lends itself to differences in flying styles. Crows are lighter and more susceptible to getting swept up and away by strong drafts. As such, they tend to fly low and flap a lot. Ravens are heavier and less manipulable by the elements. Ravens can surf on thermal drafts with greater control than crows. As a result, they can fly higher and soar without flapping as much as their cousins. Ravens generally have thicker beaks than crows. The common raven, and aptly named thick-billed raven, have significantly larger beaks than any crow. A raven's beak curvature is much more pronounced, too. Calls are another difference. Crows tend to make clear, middle to high-pitched caws or similar-sounding calls. Different crow species have different calls, but they generally fit this description. In contrast, ravens produce gurgly, lower-pitched croaking sounds akin to bullfrogs. With a bit of experience, you could even tell the difference between crows and ravens from the look of their wings. Ravens have slender, elongated, and pointy wings, whereas crows have shorter and wider wings with more rounded wingtips. Additionally, you'll also find that crows flap their wings with much greater frequency than soaring ravens. When observing the two at close range, you will find that ravens have shaggier neck feathering than crows. Tail feathers are another way to tell. Ravens have wedge-shaped tails, which is very different from the crow's more rounded tail feathering. Sociability is another way. Ravens are more likely to travel in pairs than in unkindnesses, so if you see a pair of fairly large black birds, there is a good chance you're looking at ravens. Crows do travel in pairs too, but are much more likely to move as part of a murder, especially when foraging for food. If you live on the east coast of the US, you're more likely to encounter American crows than common ravens. Raven numbers are more concentrated from the Midwest to the West Coast. What is the difference between falcons and hawks? Birds of prey are some of the most successful predators on the planet, thanks to their sheer killing efficiency, incredible diversity, and adaptability. And few birds of prey exemplify these traits better than falcons and hawks, which are some of the most prolific killers in the skies. But what makes a bird a falcon? And what makes it a hawk? Is there even a difference? Well, those are just some of a few questions we'll be looking at as we find out the difference between falcons and hawks. Let's go. Falcons. Falcons are birds of prey that are classified under the genus Falco. Their taxonomic family is Falconidae, which is also home to Caracaras. We have approximately 40 species of falcons distributed across all major continents except Antarctica. That said, according to fossils, Antarctica was home to falcon-like raptors during the Eocene, which lasted between 56 million and 34 million years ago. Such diversity and distribution means these birds have a fairly wide range of appearances, habitats, and dietary habits, among other things. It's important to note that some falco species may be referred to as hobbies or kestrels rather than falcons. A hobby is the common name for smaller falcon species with long, slender wings. Kestrels, meanwhile, are falcons with a specialized hovering maneuver when hunting or scouting. Falcons are extremely successful predators who are defined by speed, agility, intelligence, keen senses, and ruthless efficiency. Countless critters live in constant fear of carnivore birds, and falcons are usually near the top of the list of raptors to avoid for most animals. These killers feed on all kinds of small mammals, reptiles, fish, frogs, crabs, mollusks, and of course, other birds. Though exact hunting strategies may differ depending on context and scenario, it's basically a matter of the falcon swooping down from the heavens and unleashing terror with its fearsome beak and talons. Small prey is often snatched away smoothly, almost like a magician's sleight of hand. Larger prey may be harassed and harried to its doom, or systematically slashed by the beak and talons. Some animals that depend on shells, like turtles, may be carried up and dropped from great heights, a move that usually cracks their armor and drastically reduces the odds of survival. Larger birds that are difficult to grab are clubbed using clenched feet. That's right, falcons can punch prey to knock it out of the sky. These birds are generally small to medium-sized raptors. One interesting thing about falcon size is that sexual dimorphism tends to favor females. In other words, female falcons are often significantly bigger than males. The Eurasian hobby, Falco subitio, the most widespread species, is a good-sized guide for the genus as a whole. They range between 11 and 14 inches from beak to tail, 29 and 33 inches in wingspan, and 6.2 to 10 ounces in weight. One species that raises the size averages is the gyrfalcon, Falco rusticolus, the largest species in the world. With a maximum body length of 25 inches and a weight of over 4 pounds, the glorious gyrfalcon is the terror of the Arctic skies. The peregrine falcon, Falco peregrinus is another pretty big falcon with a wingspan of 29 to 47 inches and a body weight of up to 53 ounces. Of course, the peregrine falcon is also the poster child for another key falcon trait: speed. This bird ranks as the fastest animal on planet Earth. It can easily clock speeds over 200 miles per hour when diving at prey, which mainly includes unsuspecting birds. National Geographic has reported that it has recorded peregrine falcons hitting a Bugatti-esque 242 miles per hour. Naturally, like many birds of prey, falcons have a long storied relationship with humans and human culture. They are a natural pest for farmers who rear small animals like poultry or rabbits, yet can also be a natural ally for farmers who need help getting rid of grain-stealing vermin. The birds also figure prominently in countless traditional cultures around the world. They have been omens, depicted as gods, symbols, and even inspirations for names, familial totems, and institutional logos. Falcon is a pretty good name for school or professional sports teams too. Falcons have a natural cool factor that has led people to regard them as symbols of freedom, ambition, and success. And of course, there is their role in the aptly named activity of falconry. Falconry is the practice or sport of hunting with tame, trained birds of prey. The basic premise is that the bird is released to scout the area for prey or wait until its handlers flush prey out of hiding. Once the bird spots the quarry, it attacks and delivers the kill to its masters. Falcons have been used in falconry for millennia, and no one is certain who exactly came up with the idea. Falcons are especially suited to this because of how widespread they are, how easy they are to train, and their natural aptitude and enthusiasm for killing things. In the wild, diet mainly depends on location, preferred hunting strategy, and size. Smaller falcons like the Eurasian hobby prey on small birds like swallows and swifts. Larger species like the gerfalcon prey on larger birds like grouse and mammals like lemmings, hares, ground squirrels, and even Arctic foxes. Widespread and adaptable species like the peregrine falcon hunt anything from pigeons, quails, ducks, mice, snakes, and even pet cats. Hawks. The eyes of a hawk is one of the most common expressions in the English language, and for good reason. These birds do not miss a thing, making them another group of highly successful killer raptors. Unlike falcons, hawks are not neatly classified under one genus. Instead, they're scattered throughout the broader Accipitridae family. This is tricky because other birds of prey like New World vultures, kites, harriers, and eagles are among the family's 75 genera and 256 species. Another major contributor to the confusion is the fact that most casual folks refer to most Accipitridae birds smaller than eagles as hawks. Even falcons, which are in a separate family, sometimes have hawk as part of some localized common name. The peregrine falcon, for instance, is also known as the duck hawk in certain parts of the world. We also can't forget that another word for falconry is hawking, and that traditionally any bird used for the activity was referred to as a hawk. So to make things simpler, taxonomists have settled on two major subfamily groupings to distinguish true hawks, or buzzards, from other accipitrids and birds of prey. The group is Budionini, or the hawk buzzards, and includes species like Harris's hawk, Parabudio unicinctus, Rufous crab hawk, common buzzard, Budio budio, zone-tailed hawk, Budio abonotatus, and eastern buzzard, Budio japonicus, among others. The other grouping is the Accipitrini subfamily, or the true hawks, a bunch of species from the Gaber goshawk, Micronissus gaber, long-tailed hawk, Eurotriorchis macrurus, lizard buzzard, Cupifalco monogrammicus, and the shikra, Tachyspizabadia, make up this expansive grouping. However, regardless of the specific subfamily or species, hawks are defined by their sharp angular looks, hooked beaks, and relatively larger and robust builds compared to more slender and sleek falcons. They generally have relatively shorter wingspans than falcons too, as their bodies are often more suited to short, explosive flight than soaring and diving. Of course, like most of the best predators in nature, hawks are pretty adaptable and opportunistic. Their famously sharp eyes never miss a trick thanks to their advanced biotechnology. For example, human eyes have 200,000 photoreceptors compared to a Budionine hawk's 1 million. Hawks also have more nerves attached to those receptors, and their elongated eyeballs have a longer focal length, which allows them to see much further away. Basically, a hawk's eyesight is 5 to 6 times better than a human's, which allows them to spot tiny prey from great distances. Hawks also score highly on ornithologist Louis Lefebvre's avian IQ test, which is interesting. Hawk intelligence is believed to be comparable to that of cats and dogs. They show remarkable levels of adaptability, improvisation, and problem-solving skills when food is involved. Given their near-global distribution, it's fair to say that hawks are just as adaptable as falcons when it comes to habitat. However, many Buteonine hawks are better suited to wide open areas, allowing them to soar and scout for prey with minimal obstruction. Because of this, Buteonine hawks have relatively larger wings and shorter tails than accipitrine hawks. Accipitrine birds are quite different, however. Most species in this group are far more comfortable in woodland environments where they use their exceptional visual acuity to discern prey amidst its surroundings. Hawks in this subfamily also have short, broad wings and long tails to facilitate short, agile flying between the trees. Prey is highly variable and dependent on luck and location, though some species like to specialize in certain prey animals. Hawks generally go after rodents, lizards, snakes, other birds, fish, rabbits, squirrels, crabs, and amphibians. Various killing techniques are used, and most involve their needle-sharp talons and beaks. Prey can be impaled, slashed, clubbed, or dropped from the sky, depending on what the situation calls for. However, unlike falcons, which swoop and dive constantly during hunts, hawks prefer gliding overhead before going in for the kill. It's also important to note that hawk beaks lack the falcon's tomial tooth, which is used to sever necks. That said, despite their strong hunting prowess, hawks are not above scavenging the odd bit of carrion. This is especially true during the energy-sapping rearing of chicks, a period that requires both male and female hawks to constantly go out and forage for themselves and their young. That's right, like many bird species, hawks parent cooperatively, with several species even mating for life. Chicks are wholly dependent on their parents for the first few months of their lives, but are ready to start flying at around 6 weeks old. Like falcons, hawks are commonly tied to various aspects of human culture. The word hawk has been used to name iconic Native American warriors and chiefs in countless military operations and tools, and in sports teams, like Atlanta's Hawks basketball team. The hawk is a globally recognized symbol of aggression and intensity, and that won't change anytime soon. Of course, humans have also hunted with hawks since time immemorial. This falconry, or hawking, has traditional roots in multiple regions, including Asia and the Americas. The birds are highly trainable, and their natural affinity for hunting and intelligence makes them a relative breeze to work with. What is the difference between vultures and condors? Are condors just big vultures with a fancy name? Or are they completely different birds? If you've ever looked up at a huge bird circling overhead and wondered if it was a condor or a vulture, you're not alone. Both condors and vultures are large, bald-headed scavengers that play cleanup crew in nature. Yet there are some key differences between vultures and condors that can help you tell who's who. Today, I'll walk you through these differences, and by the end, you'll know exactly how to spot the difference between these two carrion-loving birds. Size and looks. Both condors and vultures have that trademark bald head and broad wings, but size is the first big giveaway. Condors are huge. They are the largest flying land birds in the Americas, with wingspans up to 9.5 feet. By comparison, most other vultures are much smaller. For example, a turkey vulture has a wingspan of about 5.5 feet. In weight, an adult condor can weigh more than 30 pounds, whereas a turkey vulture is only around 3 to 4 pounds. In other words, a condor is like the heavyweight champion of the vulture family. It's giant in comparison. Apart from size, their color patterns also differ. Adult condors typically have bold patches of white under their wings. If you see a big black bird with a bright white triangle on the underside of its wings, that's a condor. Turkey vultures, on the other hand, have a more subtle two-toned look. Their underwings have silvery gray edges, not white patches. And what about those bald heads? Both condors and vultures have naked heads, a clever adaptation to stay clean while eating messy meals. But condors tend to have larger, more colorful head skin. For instance, adult California condors have a striking pinkish-orange head, while turkey vultures have smaller reddish heads. One more thing to notice is how they hold their wings in flight. Condors are strong gliders. When a condor soars, its wings are held straight out flat, like a plane, and it looks steady as a rock. Vultures, especially turkey vultures, tend to hold their wings in a slight V shape and often wobble or teeter as they fly. Habitat and range. Where do these birds live? Here's a big clue. Unless you are in a very specific place, you're probably seeing a vulture, not a condor. Condors have a much more limited home turf. There are only 2 species of condor in the world, one in South America and one in North America. The Andean condor lives in, you guessed it, the Andes Mountains of South America, often soaring over high cliffs and open mountain grasslands. The California condor lives in a few parts of North America, notably in the coastal mountains of California and the Grand Canyon area, and in Baja California, Mexico. Condors need a lot of space and specific conditions. Being so large and heavy, they rely on strong wind currents and big cliffs or tall trees to help them take off and glide. Vultures, on the other hand, are far more cosmopolitan in the Americas. The turkey vulture, one of the most widespread New World vultures, ranges from southern Canada all the way to the southern tip of South America. You can spot turkey vultures in deserts, forests, farms, and suburbs, pretty much anywhere it can find a meal. They're extremely adaptable. They roost in woodland or on rocky outcrops at night, but spend the day soaring over all sorts of habitats, from tropical jungles to beaches. Behavior and diet. Both vultures and condors share the same unglamorous diet, carrion, which is the polite word for dead animals. They are professional scavengers. Neither condors nor vultures are active hunters of healthy animals. Instead, they soar around looking for animals that have died. This might sound gross to us, but it's a crucial job in the ecosystem. By eating decaying carcasses, they help prevent the spread of disease and clean up the environment. Think of them as nature's cleanup crew or garbage collectors with feathers. How they find their food is one interesting difference among vultures. Some vultures have an amazing sense of smell, notably the turkey vulture. A turkey vulture can sniff out a dead rodent hidden in bushes from high in the sky, zeroing in on the scent like a bloodhound with wings. Condors, however, don't rely on smell as much. In fact, condors mostly use keen eyesight to find meals. A condor soars high and watches the ground for any sign of carcass or other scavengers gathering. In areas where both turkey vultures and condors live, turkey vultures often act as the scout with their sniffing ability, and then condors follow them or just spot the party from above. Once a dead animal is found, the condor, being larger, will swoop in and take over the feast, much to the turkey vulture's annoyance. But there's a trade-off. Condors can tear open the tough hide of big carcasses with their powerful beaks, which actually helps the smaller vultures get access to the meat too. It's a bit of scavenger teamwork. Now, social life and behavior. Condors and vultures aren't songbirds or playful parrots. Their behaviors revolve around soaring, eating, and roosting. Both condors and most vultures lack a voice for singing. Literally, they don't have a well-developed voice box, so they can't sing or call like many birds. Instead, they hiss, grunt, or snuffle. A condor or vulture at a carcass might hiss like a giant angry goose to warn others away. It's a rough, almost snake-like sound. This silence adds to their eerie mystique when you see them glide overhead. They're big, but very quiet. In flight, we already talked about how condors are steady gliders and vultures wobble a bit, but what about at rest or in groups? Condors are actually pretty social with each other. They will roost together and even engage in what looks like play. California condors, for example, have been observed playfully tugging at each other's feathers or curiously investigating new objects together. They also have a social hierarchy, especially noticeable at feeding time. Among Andean condors, the oldest males usually eat first, then younger males, and females often have to wait their turn. They settle disputes mostly by bluffing and posturing rather than fighting, because a bad injury could be a big problem for a bird that needs to fly. Vultures, like turkey vultures, are a bit less structured in hierarchy, and they're often seen alone or in small groups when feeding. However, vultures do congregate as well. Many vultures, turkey vultures included, form large roosts at night. Sometimes dozens will roost in a dead tree or on a cell phone tower together. Black vultures are even more social. They often hang out in family groups and roost in big communal groups, sometimes causing a ruckus or a mess in the neighborhood. If one vulture finds a great feeding spot, others will follow. They seem to communicate or at least observe each other to locate food. Another difference in behavior comes from their daily travel and flight patterns. Condors, with those giant wings, are built to travel far. A California condor, or Andean condor, can cover roughly 200 miles in a single day, just searching for food. They can soar as high as 15,000 to 20,000 feet in altitude over mountains. That's way up in the sky, cruising on mountain updrafts. Vultures like turkey vultures also travel long distances. Turkey vultures even migrate thousands of kilometers seasonally, but on a day-to-day basis, a turkey vulture's range is smaller, and they tend to fly lower when searching for food than a condor might. Other differences and facts. Let's touch on a couple of other interesting differences. One is lifespan and reproduction. Condors live life in the slow lane. These birds can live a long time. The condor's lifespan is estimated at over 60 years in the wild. They take 5 to 6 years just to reach adulthood. And when it comes to raising young, condors are not in a rush. The condor pair usually raises only one chick every 2 years, because the parents invest over a year in nurturing a single offspring. In contrast, many smaller vultures like the turkey vulture reach adulthood faster and often raise 2 chicks every year. A turkey vulture might live 15 to 20 years in the wild, which is respectable, but nowhere near grandma condor's potential 60 years. This slow reproduction is one reason condors are so vulnerable as a species. Their populations grow very slowly. If a bunch of condors die off, it takes many years to replace them. Vultures, while facing threats too, have a bit faster turnover. Before we wrap up, let's address their public image. Vultures in general often get a bad rap. People use vulture as an insult or think of them as dirty or evil birds. Condors, on the other hand, have been revered in some cultures. The Andean condor is a national symbol of several South American countries and is associated with myths and legends portraying it as a noble creature. But when you strip away the folklore, both condors and other vultures are just birds that evolved to do an important job. They're not mean or malicious, they're just really into free meals that no one else wants. And yes, they both sometimes look a bit ugly to our eyes, but there's a certain majestic quality to them as well. Seeing a condor glide across a blue sky, or a kettle of vultures riding a thermal, is an awe-inspiring sight. Next time you see a big dark bird circling overhead, you can ask yourself, am I in condor territory? Is it unbelievably gigantic with white wing patches and hardly flapping at all? Then you might just be looking at a condor. If it's not, it's likely one of the many hard-working vultures doing its cleanup job. Both condors and vultures deserve respect for the work they do. They may not be cute and cuddly, but they are absolutely fascinating once you get to know them. So, whether it's a mighty condor riding the mountain winds or a flock of humble turkey vultures tidying up the roadside, you now know the difference between these two remarkable birds. Keep your eyes on the skies. You never know what you might spot. And now, you can tell which is which. What is the difference between ducks and geese? The wonderful world of water birds is teeming with all sorts of vibrant and colorful species, each with its own amazing story to tell. Today, we've decided to look at two popular examples of waterfowl, ducks and geese. Can you tell a duck from a goose? If you can't, you've come to the right place, because that's exactly what we'll be focusing on in today's video. By the end, you'll have no trouble telling the difference between ducks and geese. With that out of the way, let's get quacking. Ducks. Ducks are perhaps the most well-known water birds around. given that they are a popular form of livestock and poultry. In fact, they're the second most common domesticated bird, behind chickens. When it comes to classification, there is a little confusion regarding what a duck truly is. However, the general rule is that a duck is any member of the Annatidae family that is smaller than a swan or a goose in terms of body length, height, and weight. That means ducks are typically anywhere between 3 and 6 pounds in weight, while the other Annatidae birds can be twice that or more. Height is mainly determined by the neck, and taxonomists refer to a neck bone standard. Ducks have 16 or fewer neck vertebrae, while swans and geese have between 17 and 24. Unfortunately, quacking is not a surefire way to tell a duck from a non-duck. While the old saying, "if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck," is true, not all true ducks quack. Some ducks coo, while others rasp, yodel, or whatever Daffy Duck does. The word duck comes from the Old English duke, which basically means to bend down below something or to duck. This is based on how many duck species upend themselves underwater to find food. There are well over 100 duck species, with the classic white domestic duck being the best known of all. Ducks are further classified into two main groups: diving ducks and dabbling ducks. You can recognize dabbling ducks by their tendency to tip themselves into the water when feeding. Diving ducks, in contrast, actually dive and swim completely underwater when pursuing meals. While duck is the generic term, there are specific terms for specific ducks. Males are known as drakes, while females are called hens, and the babies are known as ducklings. You can sometimes tell the difference between the sexes from plumage, if not size. Many northern hemisphere drakes are mainly easy to spot because of their bright and flamboyant feathers during the breeding season. These fashion statements are a way of showing off to the ladies in order to mate and sire the next generation. However, when the summer rolls around, the drakes lose the flashy feathers and resemble the plainer-looking females. Drakes in the southern hemisphere species seldom shift plumage like this and are similar to females all year round. Ducklings typically have downy, fuzzy plumage rather than true feathers. They are often a very different color from their parents. When it comes to physiology, ducks are perfectly suited to life as semi-aquatic birds. Their iconic beaks are long and flat to allow them to pierce through the water efficiently. The beaks are also lined with serrations known as pectins, which are especially pronounced in fishing and filter-feeding duck species. The long, narrow-shaped beak allows ducks to forage through mud and dirt in search of plants and animals to eat. Their feet are okay means of getting from point A to point B on land, but they truly excel in the water. Thanks to their webbing, duck feet are the perfect propellers for moving across the water. Again, some duck species have more pronounced foot webbing than others because of their specific behaviors and requirements in the water. When sitting on the water, a duck's legs work frantically under the surface in a running-like motion to move the duck forward. They work so well that above the surface, it often looks like the duck is effortlessly gliding along the water. Flight is another major part of life for all but a very few duck species. These birds are equipped with short, narrow wings for low, mid-altitude flight. Their flying style is characterized by sharp, quick flapping, and to facilitate this, ducks have very strong wing muscles and pronounced chests. Many species are migratory, which often involves routinely flying north or south in search of better weather and climate conditions. Some species in harsh environments like deserts or icy tundras are more nomadic rather than strictly migratory, moving only in search of better conditions rather than some built-in schedule or routine. In the wild, ducks have a near global distribution. Every continent, bar Antarctica, has at least one native duck species, but most have several. They range from the tropics to the Arctic Circle, and many have colonized a bunch of the world's most remote islands. Of course, given their migratory ways, many ducks simply lay over or briefly visit places rather than take them over permanently. They prefer a wide range of environments with plenty of water, with some species favoring freshwater areas and others opting for marine life. Domestic ducks have an equally wide range. The global duck market is worth billions, with duck meat and eggs being the primary products we harvest from the birds. Duck is an important source of protein that we have enjoyed long before we domesticated them, and raising them is a fairly low-cost and accessible form of animal husbandry. Geese. Geese make up another significant part of the Narrated family, along with swans and true ducks. Most true geese are classified under two genera: Branta, made up of the dark-breasted species, and Anser, home to pale-breasted species. A few Narrated birds, like the Egyptian goose, may have the word goose in their common names, but they are not classified in either Branta or Anser and are therefore not regarded as true geese. Goose is the general word for male, female, or baby geese, but a few specific terms can be used. A male goose may be called a gander, while a female is still a goose. Juveniles are known as goslings. A group of grounded geese is called a gaggle, while an in-flight group is known as a team, wedge, or skein. The term goose is derived from Proto-Indo-European languages and Germanic tongues. It was later adopted into Old English as goss, with geese and gandra tagging along for the plural and male names. Though very similar to ducks in almost every way, geese are different in almost every way. For starters, the average goose is markedly bigger than the average duck. A goose kind of looks like what you would get if a duck hopped up on some serious steroids. Geese can be more than twice the height and weight of even the largest duck species. Their necks, a major factor in their superior height, have anywhere between 17 and 24 neck vertebrae, which is more than the maximum of 16 neck vertebrae in true ducks. They also have a bunch of facial differences compared to ducks. Their beaks, for starters, are humped rather than flat and quite short relative to overall body size. Goose nostrils are positioned much lower down than ducks as a result. This beak is primarily used for grazing, and its shorter shape is perfect for cutting grass. Goose feet are also very similar to duck feet, though a bit larger and often with more pronounced webbing. They need this extra webbing in their feet to move their considerably bigger bodies just as efficiently as ducks. Unlike ducks, geese have very little sexual dimorphism in or out of the breeding season. Coloration, for the most part, is pretty much neutral. Whites, grays, browns, and blacks are the standard colors, and some species are a mishmash of all these colors. Size is also an unreliable way to tell the sexes apart, though ganders have the potential to be slightly larger than female geese. Like ducks, or more particularly ducklings, goslings hatch from a clutch of eggs and imprint on the first living thing they see. So if you happen to pass by an unattended nest of hatching baby geese, there's a good chance they might think you're their mommy and follow you everywhere. Also, like most ducks, most geese are highly migratory creatures, venturing great distances in search of better climes and richer foraging. However, some geese with abundant home zones or geese used to getting fed by humans are far less likely to migrate. When traveling long distances, geese are often seen flying in a V formation, like a bunch of other flocking birds. Not only is this flight pattern cool to look at, but it has real practical benefits. Chief among these is the reduction of drag for birds trailing behind in the formation. The bird at the leading tip of the V cuts through the air and creates a slipstream that sucks trailing birds forward, which reduces the need for frequent flapping and in turn saves energy. Generally, the largest and strongest geese in a flock take turns leading the flight V, with youngsters and weaker birds doing most of the trailing. When a goose family goes on migration, it is mainly the mama and papa goose who take charge and lead the formation. Another interesting fact about goose family dynamics is that geese are monogamous for life. A pair will stay together forever unless separated by extreme circumstances or death. This is quite different from ducks, who are only monogamous for a year at most and are open to new partners every new breeding season. Like their Narrated cousins, geese play a prominent role in agriculture. They are a common form of livestock and perhaps the third most popular form of poultry, behind chickens and ducks. Again, meat and eggs are the primary products, though goose fat is also becoming popular around the world as both a delicacy and cooking aid. What is the difference between albatrosses and seagulls? If you love the beach, chances are you also love seabirds, unless you've been unfortunate to have your sandwich stolen by one. And if you're even remotely in tune with talk about birds of the ocean, you've probably heard the words seagull and albatross at least once. In many cases, people even use these words interchangeably, as if they were all one big happy species. But are they? Well, that's what we're here to find out, as we take a closer look at the truth of what makes a bird a seagull or an albatross. By the end, you'll have a much clearer understanding of how to identify and classify these awesome birds. With that out of the way, let's get started. Seagulls. The epitome of seabirds. Gull or seagull is the main word associated with birds that frequent the beach. As far as lay speak goes, gull pretty much covers what most people need in everyday conversation. However, we belong to the upper echelons of academia over here. Therefore, we need to dissect the ones and zeros underpinning the etymology of this particular avian wonder. In basic English, we need to classify seagulls officially. Gull is a word that describes any bird from the Narrated family of the Corydoformes order and Lari suborder. These birds are mostly opportunistic carnivores, though a pinch of fruit and vegetation may be consumed from time to time. By virtue of being Narrated and Lari birds, gulls are closely related to terns, skimmers, and luas. All in all, 54 unique species can be safely classified as gulls, with a few more subspecies. As usual, the validity of certain birds standing as genuine subspecies is greatly debated, with different ornithologists being of varying generosity when it comes to the title of subspecies. If we're speaking generally, gulls are medium to large birds that usually sport some mixture of white, black, and gray. The smallest species is the little gull, which is about 11.5 inches long and weighs around 4.25 ounces, while the largest is the great black-backed gull, which measures 30 inches and weighs up to 3 pounds 14 ounces. They have fairly pronounced webbed feet and elongated beaks, as well as even more pronounced shrieks, cries, and calls. They sport relatively long wings, moderately long necks, and rounded tails. Only 2 species have forked tails, while one, Ross gull, has a wedge-shaped tail. Beaks are often yellow in color, especially in larger white-headed birds. However, some species have red or black bills. A gull's body structure affords it a trifecta when it comes to mobility. They can swim on top of the water or dip and dive like ducks. They can also walk and waddle on the ground. And of course, fly. They can take off from the ground or water with minimal space or fuss and can reach pretty high altitudes. Gulls can even use the sea's wind to hover in place, a move they use to show off or scout for food. On paper, gulls seem kinda similar to ducks, but in practice, they behave like the crows of the beach, albeit in more beach-friendly colors. That said, despite their common association with marine ecosystems, Narrated birds are found in both coastal and inland areas, and some species are even glove-fitted to scorching desert climbs. On the extreme opposite of the spectrum, we have examples like the Zima gulls and kittiwakes, which are comfortable at offshore distances of 50 miles or more. For the most part, gulls tend to favor gregarious lifestyles. They reproduce and nest in large groups known as colonies and take over large parts of beaches all over the world. Even part of the subpolar world gets its fair share of gulls or related Narrated birds. Heck, even the Arctic gets seagulls when the weather is reasonable, which shows how widespread and adaptable these guys are. Gulls also live for a long time. Well, at least the bigger ones. Most live the best part of 5 decades, with some big white-headed species and subspecies clocking over 49 years of life. Long lifespans are pretty much always linked with high intelligence and adaptability, and this link is exemplified in animal groups like hominids, elephants, and seagulls. Their intelligence manifests in a bunch of ways: rather complex social system and equally complex ways of communicating with each other. Collaboration is another way they display their smarts. Gulls can work together to find food, detect predators, or even drive said predators away by mobbing and harassing as a group. In rarer cases, such as that of the herring gull, tools and tool-adjacent objects are used as part of the survival inventory. Herring gulls are famous for using food items like bits of bread to bait fish closer to the surface. In more common cases, gulls are perceptive and quick enough to relieve other birds, other animals, and even people of their hard-earned food. This behavior is officially known as kleptoparasitism to animal experts, but that's just fancy talk for stealing. Therefore, if you ever planned on having a seaside picnic, make sure to scout the skies for gull activity before exposing your snacks. Seriously, seagulls are up there with baboons, raccoons, and the rest of nature's most wanted bandits. A typical robbery can occur within seconds, and countless unprepared victims have had to watch helplessly as their ham sandwiches and cookies disappear into a seabird's gullet. And when it comes to eating, few birds can outdo gulls. These guys have special beaks that tend to hook slightly, allowing them to grip even the most slippery fish. Their jaws, like those of many snakes, can unhinge from their normal position, which widens the entrance to the gullet to allow bigger food to slide down. Albatrosses. Despite being labeled so by many casual observers, albatrosses are not, and have never been, seagulls. That's because albatrosses belong to a wholly separate family, Diomedeidae. Furthermore, gulls and albatrosses aren't even in the same order of birds. While gulls belong to Charadriformes, albatrosses fall under Procellariiformes. The only real taxonomic link between albatrosses and gulls is that they are both birds that you might encounter at the beach. Albatrosses are actually much more closely related to seabirds like petrels and Procellariids than they are to gulls. Today, we have 4 genera and 22 species. The term albatross comes from the Arabic word al-qadas, which means the diver. Old sailors in the North Pacific used to call them goonie birds, while folks in the southern parts of their range called them mollywogs. The majority of species live and range in the southern hemisphere, from Antarctica through South Africa, South America, and Australia. A few others live in the North Pacific region, from Japan to Hawaii, California, and Alaska. One place you will not find a single albatross colony is the North Atlantic, because they went extinct there for some unknown reason. However, solo albatrosses are spotted in the region from time to time. They are the largest bird in the Procellariiformes order, and are generally classified as large to very large birds, making them larger than most true seagulls. The biggest great albatross species, which is the Diomedea genus, have wingspans of up to 11.2 feet, the widest of any bird. Apart from their immense wingspans, you can identify these birds by their big, strong beaks. The top part of the beak ends in a bulbous, hooked tip. The beaks also feature a number of plates as well as 2 tube-like nostrils, one on each side. Apart from breathing, these nostril tubes are used to gauge airspeed during flight, a key requirement for the bird's dynamic soaring. Additionally, the well-developed nose grants albatrosses a far superior sense of smell to most other birds. Like gulls, albatrosses are very adept at swimming and walking on land. Their large, webbed feet provide plenty of support and balance on land, making albatrosses the best walkers in the Procellariiformes. Albatrosses are rangers by nature, constantly on the lookout for the best feeding, breeding, and living situations. However, they are not strictly migratory like terns or a few other seabirds, and will stick in one area indefinitely if it suits their needs. In recent times, scientists have turned to satellite tracking to uncover the truth of how and how far albatrosses range, and the results are pretty fascinating. It turns out that after congregating in large breeding colonies, albatrosses tend to disperse very widely, with many southern hemisphere birds traveling and touring the South Pole region when it's a little warmer. This tracking also shows that different species forage at varying depths. The wandering albatross, for instance, prefers to look for food in waters deeper than 3,000 feet. So just what do albatrosses eat? A lot of things. As sea-adjacent carnivores, their diet mainly includes marine creatures. They eat fish, crustaceans, mollusks like octopi or squid, as well as the innards of any dead animals. They will also scavenge carrion and nibble on a bit of plankton. Different species have their specific preferences. Some albatrosses prefer fish, others stick to mollusks, while others focus on krill, and so on. Albatrosses are generally daytime feeders, as far as we know. We also know they have desalinization glands on their beaks to squirt out some of the salt they ingest during feeding. Unfortunately, most albatross research is only possible when they land on local beaches during their breeding periods, so there may be a lot more interesting aspects to their diet. When it comes to breeding, albatrosses prefer isolated beaches and islands free of terrestrial predators. Like turtles or some species of salmon, albatrosses are philopatric, which just means they prefer to go back to the place they hatched to reproduce. They converge in breeding colonies of varying densities. However, because albatrosses can live as long as 50 years or more, they have delayed sexual maturity. Sexual maturity is reached at 5 years, but some birds have been known to wait until age 10 before breeding. When trying to find a partner, albatrosses engage in a bunch of vocalizations and body language cues. Things like preening, pointing, squawking, and dancing are all part of identifying the perfect partner. After mating, a single egg with reddish-brown spots is laid by the female. However, both parents are involved in incubating the egg and eventually foraging to feed the chick that emerges from it. Chicks develop fairly slowly and are wholly dependent on their parents for food for the best part of the first year. They eventually fledge and begin flying between days 140 to 280, with chicks from bigger species occupying the upper ends of that range. What is the difference between parrots and cockatoos? The world of birds is full of vibrant and colorful species, and few birds are as eye-catching as parrots and cockatoos. These lovable feathered beauties have fascinated humans for ages and are now highly sought after as exotic pets all over the world. In today's video, we will be exploring everything you ever wanted to know about parrots and cockatoos, including the differences between them and how related they are. So without further ado, let's get going. Parrots. According to strict taxonomic rules, a parrot is any member of the Psittaciformes order of birds. This order is, in turn, home to several families. That's right, parrots come from different families, meaning the word has a definition far beyond what most people think. There are 4 families to be exact. We have the Old World parrots of Psittaculidae, the African and New World parrots of Psittacidae, the New Zealand parrots of Strigopidae, and the cockatoos of Cockatooidae family. You heard that right, cockatoos are actually parrots, but not every parrot is a cockatoo. All in all, there are 101 genera groupings and 410 species of parrot distributed among these 4 families. About a third of all parrots face a real threat of extinction due to factors like habitat loss, climate change, and indirect consequences of human activity. Parrots are highly sought after as pets, and they have been popularized because of their unique appearances, which often include vibrant and colorful plumage. They are also famous for their association with pirates, with countless real and fictional examples of captains and crew members who keep parrot companions. These birds are also renowned for their high intelligence, with some species even able to mimic human speech and learn to talk. Generally, parrots live in the world's tropical regions. Scientists call it a pan-tropical distribution, which simply means they can be found in tropical zones of both the eastern and western hemispheres. Other species live in temperate zones as well, though. The greatest number of parrot species and groupings are found in and around South America and Australasia. When it comes to appearance, parrots are as diverse as any bird group you can think of. Some are multicolored while others have one dominant color. They also have the broadest body length range of any order of birds around today. The shortest species, the buff-faced pygmy parrot, Micropsitta pusio, is about 3.1 inches long when fully grown. The longest species is the hyacinth macaw, Andorhynchus hyacinthus, which grows to about 3.3 feet long. Despite such variability, parrots retain a lot of similarities too. They are all fairly upright birds with solid postures. They sport 4 toes, 2 front-facing and 2 rear-facing, which are perfect for climbing, perching, and manipulating objects or food with a high level of dexterity. We also can't forget about their iconic beaks. Parrot beaks are curved and strong, and they are essential for many aspects of the bird's lives. One of those major aspects is eating, of course. The beak is perfect for gripping food items, as well as crushing shells to access the seeds and nuts that make up the bulk of their diet. They can also rip into fruit with ease and harvest pollen and nectar from flowers. The beak also comes in handy during parrots' brief forays into carnivorism. They can snap up insects, arthropods, and different kinds of small prey. Parrots also boost their protein intake by occasionally indulging in carrion. Beaks are also important for mobility. Confused? Well, don't worry. You see, sometimes parrots need to climb up a tree or a pole or some other vertical thing without taking flight. To assist their legs with such endeavors, parrots will often use their beaks and neck muscles to walk up these vertical surfaces. This rare form of movement is known as tripedalism. So in essence, the bird's beaks, heads, and necks form a third walking limb. In fact, studies have shown that relative to size, a parrot's beak and neck muscles generate more pulling power than the forelimbs of climbing primates, like orangutans or chimpanzees. The evolution of parrots is still a bit of a mystery, but educated theories and hypotheses abound. One of the most dominant theories is that cetaciforms first emerged in the Australasian parts of the prehistoric landmass Gondwana. If true, this theory would explain the vast concentration and diversity of parrots in South America and Oceania today. Unfortunately, parrot fossils are exceptionally rare finds, especially in the southern hemisphere. Most of the oldest fossils on record were unearthed in the northern hemisphere, which makes determining the parrot timeline tricky. However, based on molecular analysis of the fossils we have found, it is estimated that parrots first showed up 59 million years ago, give or take a few million years. That said, a highly debated beak fragment fossil from Wyoming, USA has been dated to 70 million years ago, which suggests that parrot or parrot ancestors lived alongside the mighty dinosaurs of the late Cretaceous. However, opponents of this view argue that the beak actually belonged to the Carignathid oviraptorosaur, a non-avian dinosaur that had a bird-esque beak. Despite the arguments over the Wyoming beak fragment, there is a general acceptance that parrot ancestors might have been around during the mass extinction event of 66 million years ago. These birds may have been generalized tree dwellers without the specialized crushing beak modern parrots have. What we know for sure is that parrots share common ancestry with the perching birds of the Passeriformes. Together, parrots and passerines are classified into the Psittacopaceri clade. This clade is also a sister group to the Euphalconomorphae clade, which is home to falcons. The earliest modern parrot fossils date back 23 to 20 million years ago and were discovered in England, Germany, Denmark, and different parts of Europe. There is no southern hemisphere fossils older than 20 million years. Parrots are, for the most part, monogamous breeders that stay close even outside breeding windows. Pairs establish nests in tree hollows and other cavities, working together to raise, feed, and protect eggs and chicks. Large parrots like macaws have much lower reproductive rates than smaller species, with only very few, sometimes one, chicks per year. Big parrots also take a longer time to reach adulthood and sexual maturity than small parrots. We also have to talk about the intelligence and learning capacity of parrots. Species like gray parrots have been shown to have the capacity to learn hundreds of words and their meaning, which means they can be trained to speak in full sentences and even follow commands. Generally, parrots have a brain-to-body size ratio on par with that of higher primates like chimpanzees. Also like chimps, some parrots are known to use basic tools like sticks to reach food. In research facilities, they have shown remarkable puzzle-solving skills. In the wild, social learning is often the main activity for young parrots. They learn how to coexist with their siblings and later with flocks and their mates. These interactions, in turn, allow the birds to share tricks and skills essential for life. Some species even have cooperative interbrood nurseries, where chicks learn how to live and work together. Because of their striking looks and smarts, parrots are a prominent part of many cultures around the world. They feature in ancient religions like Buddhism and are part of the native lore of countless tribes and peoples, like the Australian Aborigines. Cockatoos. As we've already mentioned, cockatoos are parrots that belong to the Cockatooidae family of the Psittacophanes order. There are 8 genera and a total of 21 species of cockatoo, and most of them are distributed throughout Australasia, ranging from Australia to New Guinea, the Philippines, and select islands in eastern Indonesia. Like all parrots, cockatoos have trademark curved beaks made for crushing and walking, as well as 4 toes. However, Cockatoos are fairly easy to tell apart from most other parrots because of the prominent crests on their heads. Additionally, cockatoos tend to have one main plumage color, like white, black, or gray, with crests and tail feathers being the most colorful part of their bodies. Most other parrots feature vibrantly multicolored plumage. The crest, which can be yellow, pink, or red in color, indicates mood, state of alertness, and other communication cues. Cockatoos are generally on the larger end of the parrot size spectrum, but a few are average sized. The cockatiel, Nymphicua hollandicus, is the smallest species around, measuring 12 to 13 inches long. Like most parrots, cockatoos are flying birds built for speed and maneuverability. Flight speeds can reach up to 43 miles per hour, though larger species like the sulfur-crested cockatoo fly at a slower, luxurious pace. When not in flight, cockatoos climb up trees with their legs and beaks or waddle on the ground with a rolling gait. Their iconic beaks also work in tandem with strong tongues to manipulate and access food. And speaking of food, cockatoo diets mainly consist of seeds and nuts, with some fruit mixed in. Predatory behavior is not uncommon, and they will also eat carrion. Again, like most parrot families and species, sexual dimorphism is very limited, with males and females being pretty much the same as far as size and coloration. However, there are a few exceptions, like the gang cockatoo, which has marked differences between males and females. Cockatoos are famed for their wide range of vocalizations, which serve multiple purposes, like a warning of danger, attracting mates, indicating mood, and maintaining social bonds within a flock. Unfortunately, cockatoos are not the most talkative of parrots, with mimic vocabularies that rarely surpass a few dozen words. Regardless of their limited speech, cockatoos are highly sought-after exotic pets within and outside their home ranges. The cockatiel, more specifically, is the most popular choice for pet bird lovers because of its smaller size and lower upkeep requirements. The birds are naturally very social, forming sizable close-knit flocks in the wild. In captivity, cockatoos can be very affectionate with people they know and trust, but they are also notoriously demanding where attention is concerned. Isolation is a big no-no for cockatoos, especially for long stretches. Without frequent social stimulation, the birds can easily slide into depression and waste away. It's not surprising that the pet trade represents a significant threat to wild cockatoo populations, as birds are caught at staggering rates to feed ever-growing demands. As such, 7 of the 21 species are classified by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, as vulnerable or worse. Habitat loss has also done great damage to some species that are now teetering on the brink of extinction. What is the difference between crows and rooks? Dark-winged birds are so commonplace that we often overlook or misidentify them. Are they crows, rooks, ravens, or jackdaws? Not many people can be certain. Today's video looks at 2 of these, crows and rooks, and how you can finally tell them apart with confidence. So let's start by getting to know our subjects. Crows. The word crow is often used to refer to any bird in the Corvidae family, which sparks a ripple effect of confusion. However, strictly speaking, a crow refers to the medium to small species in the Corvus genus. Though there are echoes of debate, most taxonomists agree that about 34 of the 46 Corvus species are true crows. Oh, and the remaining species in Corvus? Ravens and rooks. But back to crows. Highly adaptable birds that have basically taken over the world. North or south, east or west, crows are everywhere. From the plains of East Africa to the beaches of the Caribbean, crows live and thrive anywhere, seizing every opportunity toward survival. With this wide distribution comes a wide range of adaptations, from the African pied crow, Corvus albus, European hooded crow, Corvus cornix, and Asian house crow, Corvus splendens, to a whole host of other species. Crows are arguably the most populous birds in the entire Old World. They have strong representation in the New World, too. The American crow, or Corvus brachyrhynchos, leads the way with a presence all over the US, southern Canada, and Mexico. You're also likely to run into the Tamaulipas crow, Corvus imperatus, if you're ever on or near the Gulf of Mexico coast. The American crow, arguably the most populous crow species in the world, is 16 to 20 inches long from bill to tail. The tail is around 50% of its body length. Body mass ranges from 11 to 21 ounces. Like most crow species, males are larger than females. Crows and all other corvid birds belong to the Passeriformes order, with passer meaning sparrow, while formes means shaped in Latin. Like sparrows, corvids are perching birds with 4 toes on each foot. 3 toes point forward while a 4th points backward, so the foot grips a perch. This is known as anisodactyl toe arrangement. The birds are famous for their resourcefulness and smarts. As opportunistic omnivores, they eat everything we eat and a lot of stuff we wouldn't ever eat. Bread, seed, carrion, or jelly babies, it really makes no difference. They are constantly prowling the skies, eyes scanning for easy pickings. Naturally, crows' voracious appetites and aggression when pursuing food makes them villains in many tales. They have been enemy number one to many a farmer for many a year, devastating crops of corn, wheat, and anything else they fancied. Crows were such a bane that they inspired the invention of the appropriately named scarecrow. They are also a menace around garbage cans and at dump sites. They are smart enough to learn how to tip garbage cans over. They tear through packaging to find leftovers, leaving trash strewn all over the street or your yard. One crow can certainly cause a lot of trouble, but a lot of the time they choose collaborative chaos. The birds can form flocks quickly, especially if something of the edible variety pops up and draws sufficient attention. Swarming crows will inevitably attract more crows, and a need for more scarecrows. Since time immemorial, crows have played significant roles in many cultures around the world, from aiding navigation to symbolic and even mythological significance. Civilizations used them as environmental signs, regarded them as deities incarnate, and used them as symbols for various virtues and vices. Crows are also deeply linked with negative supernatural hoodoo, or indeed voodoo. They often represent ill luck, poor harvest, and death. Interestingly, a group of crows is called a murder. Crows are also associated with witchcraft, much like owls. Their dark wings are used to symbolize the dark robes dark spellcasters are often depicted in, sparking beliefs that some crows may actually be shape-shifting witches in disguise. Rooks. Apart from being occasionally confused for crows or ravens, rooks actually have a much less complicated story than crows. That's because rooks, or Corvus frutilegus, are one species under the same Corvus genus as crows and ravens. There are 2 subspecies, the western rook, aka Corvus frutilegus, and the eastern rook, or Corvus frutilegus pastinator. They are pretty big birds, covered entirely in black feathers that shimmer blue hues in certain light. However, they have one standout feature: their pale faces. Unlike ravens and crows that have black faces and equally black beaks, rooks have white faces and pale beaks. Beaks on some individuals may be darker than others, but they are never completely black. Rooks weigh between 9.9 and 12 ounces and can be between 17 and 18 inches long, making them smaller than common carrion and American crows. They have shorter wingspans too, at 32 to 39 inches. Males are larger than females, and the western subspecies is larger than its eastern counterpart on average. Rooks live in various parts of Europe and Asia. The western rook ranges from the British Isles to southern Russia. The eastern rook's range stretches from the middle of Siberia to the bulk of Asia proper. In the 1800s, many rooks were introduced to New Zealand, where they quickly became invasive animals that required culling. Today, small groups remain there. Their preferred environment is wide open spaces with plenty of foraging that caters to their omnivorous needs. But they also need tall trees like sycamores to build their nests. They rarely ever make homes in dense forests, swamps, and hilly terrain, and they generally dwell at 400 feet above sea level or lower. Additionally, they prefer to live in untapped wilds or rural farm areas and actively avoid noisy towns and cities. Rooks are, for the most part, resident birds with no strict migration. However, populations within or close to the Arctic Circle fly south in autumn to avoid the brutal northern cold. They will also leave an area if the foraging is poor or if nesting sites are unsatisfactory. They are very social birds that spend a lot of their time in flocks. They share trees during the breeding season, with multiple couples establishing colonial nests among the high branches of a chosen host. A colony of rooks' nests is called a rookery. A flock of rooks is called a parliament, clamor, storytelling, or building. Another interesting thing about rooks is that males and females are monogamous and mate for life. Even when changing flocks, rooks often move as a pair. Rook flocks seem to be very egalitarian with no strict dominant structure. Rooks are not overly territorial, so they can even share brooding space with other flocks or even other bird species like jackdaws and crows. In fact, jackdaws and rooks are seen traveling together all the time. This collaboration is likely a defensive measure against predators. After all, it's much more difficult to sneak up on 100 birds than to sneak up on 1 or 2. Their diets are quite varied and feature both plant and animal food sources. About 60% of what they eat comes from plants, fruits, roots, seeds, berries, while the rest comes from animals like worms, insects, mollusks, eggs, smaller birds, and mammals, as well as carrion. Rooks are not above getting down and dirty, like crows too. They are known to raid dump sites and trash cans, leaving disorder in their wake. They're also smart enough to target tourist areas and other places where edible garbage is likely to be lying around. Like other corvus birds, rooks are noted for their intelligence, problem-solving, and trainability. Captive rooks display all sorts of solutions to puzzles, some of which even include the use and modification of tools. They can do things like use a hooked wire to extend their reach, or even build small stone bridges to reach floating food. A group of rook lovers in France has even trained the birds to pick up litter instead of scattering it everywhere. Collaborative problem-solving is also part of the package, and rooks quickly turn to their friends if they cannot overcome a challenge alone. One animal that they have somewhat struggled to collaborate with is us. Humans have had a dislike for the birds for a long time, mainly due to the threat they pose to crops. Several laws permitting the culling of the birds have been issued and brutally enforced for centuries. Struggling farmers had to go further out of pocket to hire living scarecrows, who were usually screaming kids running around banging rattles, pots, and pans to scare the birds away. One common avenue for culling was the practice of rook shooting. This involves shooting juvenile rooks that couldn't fly yet from their branches. Young rooks are edible and are often used to make rook and rabbit pie. Adult rooks aren't edible, though. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, classifies the bird in the least concerned tier, and populations are expected to keep thriving. Of course, the rook faces threats from habitat destruction, human infrastructure, herbicides, and pesticides. So how are they different? Crows and rooks differ in a few ways. Classification, for starters. Crows make up the bulk of species and subspecies in the Corvus genus. Rooks are only one species, Frugilegus. There are also a bunch of physical differences as well. Size is one of these aspects. Though the two generally have the same body length and weight ranges, rooks are smaller than the larger crow species like the American crow. Wingspan is another thing to look at. While rooks' wingspans are shorter outright, they are proportionally longer than crows. If you can't gauge the wingspan proportions, you could look at the tails. Crows have wedge-shaped tails with a flat bottom, while rooks have wedged tails with a bit of curvature. Up close, you can tell from their faces. As we mentioned before, rooks have whitish, featherless faces with pale beaks. Rooks have black faces to match their black bills. If you get really close, you can also look at their legs. Rooks have more feathers along their legs than crows, making them look like they're wearing trousers. Distribution and habitat are another major difference. Rooks live in the quiet plains and lowlands of Europe and Asia, and only occasionally settle in highly populated areas. In contrast, crows live in both the Old and New Worlds and thrive in a wider range of environments, including the biggest and busiest cities in the world. What is the difference between eagles and vultures? Eagles and vultures are probably the two most famous birds of prey in the skies, and both of them have well-known reputations built up over millennia. But how does one differentiate between the two? Are there any noteworthy differences at all? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at our fine feathered friends. Eagles. Eagles are large birds of prey from the Accipitridae family, primarily in the Aquila genus, although others are classified under different genera. The birds in Aquila are more commonly referred to as true eagles, while non-Aquila birds are only classified as eagles if they are large enough to hunt and catch vertebrates at least 19.7 inches long. The term eagle is actually the Anglo-Norman translation of the Latin word aquila. In French, the word is aigle, while Spanish and Portuguese speakers use aguila and aguilla respectively. In Old English, ern was used before eagle became more common. Eagles figure prominently in human cultures. They are a common symbol of strength, nobility, war, nationhood, and all-round excellence. Countless traditional peoples have revered them as deities and supernatural symbols since time immemorial. All in all, there are 68 species alive today, with several of them highly endangered thanks to factors like habitat loss from human activity. As far as distribution, you are far more likely to run into eagles in Africa, Europe, and Asia. About 54 species are native to the Old World, while there are 11 in the Americas and 3 in Australia. Habitats are extremely varied, as the birds are found everywhere from dense tropical jungles to the middle of scorching sand deserts to icy tundras. Wooded forests, grasslands, and mountainous climbs are also prime eagle real estate. Eagles are among the largest of all raptorial birds, only behind vultures and condors. As such, full-grown specimens often rule the skies as apex predators, fearing nothing from other birds. A number of renowned ornithologists have even documented how eagles are the only birds of prey that don't constantly scan over their shoulders to watch out for predators. Even during focus-intensive activities like hunting or mating, eagles hardly bother watching their backs because they are certain no airborne creature would dare start problems. These killer birds are best described as death from above, given their ruthlessness, sizes, speed, and weaponry. Eagles are characterized by sharp curved beaks and even sharper talons. The beaks are designed to rip flesh when eating or in battle, while the talons allow the birds to grip and impale prey or perch onto various perches. Broad wings and super pronounced chest muscles allow for rapid takeoff and acceleration, while keen eyes can spot a rabbit's birthmark from over 100 yards. Of course, with such diversity among eagles, you also get different strengths and preferences. Some species, like the golden eagle, Aquila quercetus, have a fairly varied menu: snakes, other birds, and mammals. Others, like the fish eagles of the Haliaeetus genus, specialize in fish and other aquatic animals. There are also birds like the harpy eagle, Harpy harpyja, which are especially tuned to catch tree-dwelling mammals, like sloths and monkeys. In most cases, an eagle's hunt follows a simple order: spot target, take off or swoop, grab, kill, and eat. Many times, victims hardly know what hit them, and those that do can do little and less to stop it. However, hunting strategies do vary even for a particular species. The golden eagle, or Africa's martial eagle, are fine examples of this. Both of these birds can simply swoop down and grab chickens or hares and kill them when they land again. Or they can swoop down on smaller prey like rats or meerkats and deliver crushing blows to the head with their talons in mid-flight. Or they can harass small mountain goats to fall off cliffs and to their deaths. In fact, eagles are very aware that not all of their prey can fly. Gravity-aided kills are quite common. Eagles often take terrestrial prey like rabbits, chickens, or puppies to extraordinary heights before dropping them to let gravity do its thing. Some species even do this to break tortoise shells so they can access the vulnerable flesh within. That said, prey and hunting strategies depend on factors like the environment and the size of the eagle in question. The largest species in terms of sheer weight and bulk are the Philippine eagle, Pithecofaga jeffreyi, and the harpy eagle, which average weights of 18.25 pounds and 16.25 pounds respectively. These two also reign supreme in body length, with both measuring about 3 feet 3 inches in length. When it comes to average wingspan, the white-tailed sea eagle, Haliaeetus albicilla, comes out on top. On average, these soaring fish lovers measure 7 feet 2 inches from wingtip to wingtip. You'll find that the biggest species, like the harpy and Philippine eagles, have fairly short wingspans. That's because shorter wings are better for maneuvering within the thick forest they live in. Eagles native to more open areas can afford relatively longer wings because they rely on soaring high to scout for prey. Of course, live prey isn't the only thing eagles are on the lookout for. Like most predators, eagles are not above scavenging, especially when times are lean. The birds are experts at reading the skies and following other scavenger-type birds like ravens, crows, and vultures to easier pickings. They can often scare other birds away from the carrion and even carry the food away if possible. In fact, eagles are not unfamiliar sights at human garbage dumps, where they forage for leftovers and the rats that scurry after them. Vultures. The classification is just as muddled and confusing as that of eagles, if not more. For starters, there are two main classifications: Old World vultures and New World vultures. Old World vultures fall under the Accipitridae family, along with eagles, hawks, kites, and buzzards. These vultures are further split into two subfamilies, Gypetini and Aegypiani. Notable Gypetini species include the Egyptian vulture, Neophron percnopterus, bearded vulture, Gypaetus, and palmnut vulture, Gypohyrax angloensis. The Aegypiani subfamily is home to the most species, with notable examples like the common hooded vulture, Necrocyrtus monachus, Cape vulture, Gyps coprotheris, and lappet-faced vulture, Torgos trachleotis. As far as New World vultures, we have one family, Cathartidae. This is made up of 5 vulture species and the 2 extant condor species. All in all, there are 23 species of vultures and condors in the world. Unlike eagles, vultures have a less than sterling reputation. Few cultures have ever used them to represent strength or nobility. Instead, they are most commonly linked with death, decay, or bad vibes in general. It would be hard to find anyone whose favorite animal is a vulture, which is pretty unfair, given the important ecological role these birds play. You see, these infamous scavengers are kind of like nature's recycling facility. They speed up the circle of life by consuming the decaying and nasty flesh of dead things. Without them, disease-causing bacteria would spread and cause problems for many other animals and their environments. Almost all vultures live primarily on carrion. The Gypetini Old World vultures break this rule though, as they are excellent hunters. The palm nut vulture is even weirder, thanks to its fruit-heavy diet. However, carrion is the go-to for all other Old World birds and all of the New World ones. They even lack the curved toes and talons typical of birds of prey, instead sporting flatter feet and blunted claws that are suited for waddling and hopping along the ground. Their beaks, though, are typically raptorial. Using their beaks, vultures can tear into the toughest hides and often use their flat feet to plant themselves for maximum leverage when tearing chunks off of corpses. Another common trait among vultures is baldness of the head and legs. The dominant theory behind this is that the lack of feathers in these areas prevents blood, guts, and gore from sticking to the birds, which in turn minimizes the spread of bacteria. Vultures even urinate on their own legs, and the high concentrations of uric acid also kill germs. Another theory is that the bald extremities aid the birds with thermal regulation, which also makes sense because a lot of them live in fairly warm regions of the world. The peeing on the legs may also play a role in cooling down. Vultures are socially complex birds that are comfortable in flocks, in pairs, or alone. Most groupings are often opportunistic and mainly revolve around a particular feeding site or the promise of one. After all, keeping an eye out for other vultures is often the easiest way to find food. Like eagles, their vision is superb. Combined with their lofty soaring, vultures can spot dead or dying animals from great distances. The Ruppell's vulture, Gyps ruppelli, is a standout soarer capable of altitudes of 37,000 feet. When the opportunity arises, they swoop down in circular patterns, which allows them to keep an eye out for nearby predators and bigger scavengers. Because of increased human content, many vultures have also learned to stick close to human settlements. Dead livestock and garbage sites are gold mines for them, and much easier to find than food in the wild. Another interesting thing about vultures is that some of them are the largest of the birds of prey, full stop. The biggest vultures, like the Andean condor, are significantly larger than the biggest eagles in both weight and wingspan. The Andean condor, for instance, can reach 33 pounds in weight and sport wings nearly 11 feet wide. These proportionally larger wingspans are the foundation of vultures' incredible soaring. Though capable of soaring higher and longer than eagles, vultures generally have an unrushed way of flying. After all, most of the food they eat is already dead, so there's no need to swoop down with explosive force like eagles. Other notable differences. Though both eagles and vultures boast extraordinary eyesight, vultures can also call upon a pretty good sense of smell to help them find food. Additionally, vultures have less pronounced chest muscles than eagles, which do much more low-level flying and swooping during hunts. Vultures mostly flap during takeoffs and landings, otherwise they just surf the wind on their way up and down, which doesn't require much chest power. Eagles also beat out vultures for sheer brute strength. Large jungle eagles like the harpy need this strength to wrestle large prey like monkeys from branches or haul fish from water. Vultures are pretty strong too, but they are no match for their more predatory, distant cousins. What's the difference between puffins and penguins? Puffins and penguins are some of nature's most recognizable water birds thanks to their fascinating looks, behavior, and ecological roles. But how does one tell them apart? What are some of the key traits and characteristics that separate penguins from puffins? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we explore all there is to know about these incredible birds. Puffins. Puffins are water birds from the Fratercula genus. This genus is, in turn, part of the Alcidae family, along with murres, auklets, murrelets, and guillemots. There are 3 puffin species within Fratercula. We have the Atlantic puffin, Fratercula arctica, tufted or crested puffin, Fratercula cirrhata, and the horned puffin, Fratercula corniculata. As the name suggests, Atlantic puffins mainly live in the North Atlantic. The other 2 species live in the North Pacific. Puffins are medium-sized birds with stocky builds and predominantly black, dark brown, and white plumage on their bodies. Their heads and faces have similar coloration, though beaks are pretty colorful. The feet are orange. As a result of this somewhat vibrant coloration, puffins are sometimes nicknamed sea parrots. The word puffin comes from the Anglo-Norman word for the cured meat of Manx shearwater birds. The meat is fatty and puffed up, hence puffin. The genus name Fratercula is Latin for little brother, with brother referring to the bird's plumage, which kind of looks like the robes worn by European monks. The tufted puffin is the largest species, thanks to a body length of 15 inches, a wingspan of 25 inches, and a body weight of up to 1.7 pounds. The horned puffin can be just as long, but it has a shorter wingspan at 23 inches and weighs less at 1.37 pounds. The Atlantic puffin is the smallest, measuring 13 inches in length, 21 inches in wingspan, and 13 ounces in body weight. Despite the differences in size, all 3 species are bona fide seabirds. Their relatively short wings are perfect for diving, while their webbed feet are an obvious sign of their masterful swimming abilities. They fly low and rely on powerful chests to make running starts from the water. These birds are predatory, and they spend a lot of their waking hours scouring the ocean for something to eat. Their diet consists mainly of fish, but they will also go after small marine invertebrates like mollusks, worms, shrimp, and crabs. When hunting, puffins sit on the water like ducks and carefully scan below the surface. When potential prey is spotted, the birds spring into action and dive in after it. Once underwater, the puffin spreads its wings and flaps them, kind of like flying underwater. The birds can dive as deep as 98 feet and hold their breath for up to a minute. Interestingly, puffins can catch multiple fish in a single dive thanks to their specially hinged jaws and tongues. A puffin can pin fish it has already caught in its mouth using its tongue and go after more fish. The beak works a bit like an adjustable wrench, meaning the upper and lower beak can close in parallel fashion. This allows puffins to hold a row of fish without having to drop or crush their catches. An Atlantic puffin can consume fish as long as 7 inches, but most stick to food that is around 3 inches long. This species tends to favor herring, capelin, sprots, and sand eels. A single adult can eat 30 to 40 of these little fish every day. The smaller fish can be swallowed while submerged, but the birds must get back to the surface to eat bigger fish. otherwise they risk drowning. The larger tufted puffin eats larger members of the rockfish community in both coastal and open waters. This species also likes the odd bit of squid, crabs, and krill. Puffins are colonial breeders that build their nests and broods on the coasts and islands within their home ranges. Large numbers are common, and places like Iceland host millions of breeding pairs every spring. The birds are fairly simple nesters. Most of the time, they dig quick and easy burrows with their robust feet and beaks. Sometimes they make use of convenient crevices among rocks or take over some other animal's abandoned abode. Males do most of the nest building for the most part, though female horned puffins do help with the digging and interior decoration. Puffins are not overly fussy about lining their nests with bedding, and some couples prefer it more than others. The birds are highly monogamous, and they are very likely to use the same nest site year after year if it proves fruitful and peaceful. After mating, a female puffin will lay a single egg. Depending on the species, eggs may be creamy white, lilac, off-white with multicolored specks, or pure white. Couples take turns incubating their eggs for 40 days, then spend another 40 days raising and feeding their rapidly growing pufflings. Young puffins leave the nest after this and begin lives of adventure on the open water, where they hone the craft of diving for dinner. At about 4 or 5 years old, the now sexually mature puffins return to land to breed and continue their life cycle. Despite their highly collaborative breeding style, puffins are solitary for most of the time. They live on the open water, far from the coast, and this makes documenting what they get up to out there very difficult. However, there's no doubt that a lot of it involves torpedoing into the depths in pursuit of juicy morsels. Of course, while puffins are highly successful predators in their own right, they are far from apex predator status. That means they are very often on someone else's menu. On land, puffins are hunted by people, foxes, bears, and domestic predators like cats and dogs. In the air, there are birds of prey. Owls, eagles, and falcons all love themselves puffy portions of puffin. In the water, they need to be mindful of sharks and killer whales. Penguins. Penguins are flightless water birds from the Sphenicida family, and perhaps the least birdy members of the avian world. But they are most certainly birds. They even lay eggs and stuff. Penguins are the undisputed icons of Antarctica, but one species, the Galapagos penguin, lives along the equator. They are perfectly suited to marine life, with sleek body profiles, multiple layers of plumage for insulation, and true flippers where most birds have wings. They even have spiky tongues for gripping their slippery seafood. Like all other birds, though, penguins have feet, complete with toes and claws. Of course, the feet have aquatic adaptations like being webbed and having shorter, thicker bones than similarly sized birds. The feet work like fins, adding to the flapping power of the flippers. Within the Sphenicida family, there are 6 genera and 18 species. Notable examples include the Gentoo penguin, Pygoscelis papua, the fastest underwater bird on Earth at 22 miles an hour. Then there's the emperor penguin, the biggest species, which can be 3.5 feet tall and weigh 77 pounds or more. The smallest species is the little blue penguin, Eudyptila minor, which has an average size of 12 inches and 3 pounds. Like puffins, penguins are predators of fish and an assortment of sea creatures like krill, squid, crustaceans, and anything they feel they can overpower. Naturally, larger penguin species can go after larger prey. Of course, these birds also have to watch out for predators like killer whales, sharks, and seals. Luckily, though, there are no foxes or bears at the South Pole, otherwise these flightless land-nesting birds would be in fossil form right now. Interestingly, scientists regard the presence and absence of land predators as a core differentiator between how puffins and penguins evolved. Both birds have similar lifestyles, diets, and breeding strategies. However, puffins had to evolve and retain the ability to fly to survive in the north. Meanwhile, the lack of land predators allowed penguins to become highly specialized swimmers and hunters at the expense of flight. And once you see penguins in motion in the water, you'll see that the trade-off was worth it. They are as majestic, graceful, and agile as any bird in flight, and their countershade camouflage makes them extremely successful hunters. In the case of penguins, countershade means their backs are dark to blend with the depths, while their fronts are pale to blend with the sky when seen from below. One particularly clever adaptation is how penguins' feathers form a thin layer of air when in the water. This air casing has the double benefit of insulating against the icy cold and providing a natural buoyancy. The buoyancy aspect also adds to the underwater maneuverability that comes in clutch when hunting, or being hunted. After spending half the year at sea, penguins return to land during the warmer months to breed. A few species, like the emperor penguin, breed in the heart of winter. Spring and summer in the southern hemisphere occur from October to March, while winter spans from May to early August. They typically form colonies that range from a few hundred couples to hundreds of thousands, depending on the species. Yellow-eyed penguins don't form breeding colonies, though. Colony life is highly social, as shown by the incredible range of vocalizations these birds make. Love calls, warning calls, nurturing calls for chicks, and more can be heard up and down the coasts occupied by large penguin colonies. Penguins are monogamous throughout a single breeding season, but year-on-year fidelity varies much more than with puffins. King and emperor penguins lay a single egg per brood, but all other species lay two. Again, parents work together to incubate eggs and raise young. Baby penguins are the cutest thing you'll find in Antarctica, and they are reliant on their parents for survival. Both parents go on hunting expeditions to feed the chicks, and these trips can take several hours, which increases the risks of nest predation. Luckily, some of the larger species have workarounds, such as nurseries made up of chicks supervised by a few adults. Nurseries allow most of the other parents to go out to feed and find food to bring back for their babies. Penguins are a worldwide cultural phenomenon, despite, if not because of, their remote Antarctic home. They are popular in media like films, cartoons, books, and of course, documentaries. What is the difference between eagles and hawks? Birds of prey are some of nature's most remarkable creatures. From their incredible senses to their unbelievable athleticism, these birds are just super cool. And no conversation about birds of prey is complete without talking about eagles and hawks, the rulers of the sky. But just what is an eagle, and what is a hawk? Are these terms just variations of the same creatures? Or are there real differences between them? Let's talk about it. Eagles. The word eagle is actually a common name for many of the larger members of the Accipitridae family of birds of prey. However, a bunch of other birds like hawks, kites, harriers, and vultures also fall under this family, which has a total of 75 genera and 256 species. Within the taxonomic family, eagles are further classified into several genera. One particular genus, Aquila, is home to the true eagles. Other genera with eagle species include Hieratus, Aureatus, Sphizaster, Nicetus, and Ictinatus. That said, while eagles are not so neatly classified, there is a general rule of thumb. An eagle is an accipitridae bird large enough to hunt prey that is at least 19 inches long. The word eagle is a derivative of the Latin word aquila. These birds are large and robust, and armed with formidable beaks and talons. The smallest eagles, like the booted eagle, Hieratus pinnatus, are quite similar in size to average-sized hawk species, but are still noticeably superior when it comes to wing size and flight speed. At the other end of the size spectrum, we have beasts like the Philippine eagle, Pithecophauga jeffreyi, and South America's harpy eagle, Harpia harpesia. The former has an average weight of 18.25 pounds, while the latter is about 14 pounds. Of course, average means that some individuals within the species grow much, much larger. In fact, within the raptor kingdom, only some vulture species and condors can rival or outgrow the largest eagles. Interestingly, when it comes to size, sexual dimorphism favors females, which can be nearly 50% larger than their male counterparts. Physically, eagles are built for fast and powerful flight, facilitated by huge chest muscles. While they can fly very high, they are not extreme altitude soarers like vultures and condors, which have equally extreme wingspans. Eagles are renowned super predators that tackle prey in the air, land, and water. Most species are quite versatile when it comes to menu items, but a few others may specialize in fish or snakes. Generally, diet includes mammals like rodents, hares, and small ungulates, as well as reptiles, amphibians, and other birds. They prefer live prey, but they are not above scavenging carrion or bullying smaller birds of prey away from their kills. Many of the larger species are apex predators, which means there is no one above them in the food chain. Their main threats stem from human activity: habitat destruction, pollution, ingesting of animals poisoned by pesticides, and infrastructure like power lines. They rely on their exceptional eyesight to spot and identify targets. Eagles can see up to 6 times as far as humans, with up to twice the acuity. This vision is what allows golden eagles, Aquila crisatos, to spot rabbits from hundreds of feet in the air, or African fish eagles, Haliaeetus vocifer, to see catfish wriggling a few inches below the water's surface. When attacking, they pump their chests to flap their wings furiously to gain altitude, or they tuck their wings to swoop down. They can snatch other birds in mid-flight, or small mammals clean off the ground, or fish straight out of the water. The jungle-dwelling harpy eagle easily pulls monkeys and sloths from their canopy refuges. Golden eagles have also been documented harassing mountain goats off cliffs to force lethal falls. Tortoises can be dropped from great heights to crack and break shells. Their iconic talons are the key to grabbing and gripping prey. Some of the larger birds have talons similar to grizzly bear claws in size and length. These talons are also used for killing by impaling some vital body parts, like the head. The beak is how they rip flesh and eat. They have heavier and more robust beaks than most other birds of prey, which means they are the best at cutting into victims. Using their talons for grip, eagles will bite into their food and use their powerful legs to pull up, and the force is usually enough to tear flesh. So where are eagles found? Well, they have a near global distribution, though they are not found in Antarctica. Australasia, the Americas, Eurasia, and Africa all have at least 2 common eagle species. They live in various kinds of habitats: forests, mountains, deserts, tundras, and more. Breeding pairs often set up in very high places like treetops or cliffs. They have complex social dynamics, territorialism, and many species mate for life. An eagle pair generally lays 2 eggs, but the larger sibling often kills the smaller one, which is pretty hardcore. Parents don't intervene in these lethal sibling squabbles, probably because the cost of raising 1 chick is far lower than raising 2. Eagles are among the most iconic of all birds, not just raptors. Many cultures through the ages have adopted them as symbols of strength, rulership, dominance, and overall excellence. The United States has the bald eagle as its national animal, and many countries have a similar level of reverence for these incredible birds. You'll also find eagles or eagle symbology in various religions, sports teams, and companies. Recent NFL Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, are a notable example. Hawks. Like eagles, hawks are not perfectly sorted into one family or genus. In other words, they are also scattered throughout the wider Accipitridae family, alongside New World vultures, kites, harriers, and eagles. And this can be confusing, to say the least. Another major contributor to the confusion is the fact that most casual folks refer to most Accipitridae birds, smaller than eagles, as hawks. In other words, a hawk is an Accipitridae bird that cannot hunt prey that is 18 inches long or more. Even falcons, which aren't even in the same family as hawks and eagles, sometimes have hawk as part of some localized common name. The fast-flying peregrine falcon, for example, is called the duck hawk in some parts of the world. To help minimize confusion, scientists have come up with 2 major subfamily groupings to distinguish true hawks or buzzards from other accipitrids and birds of prey. The first group is Budionini, or the hawk buzzards, and includes species like Harris's hawk, Parabudio unicinctus, Rufus crabhawk, common buzzard, Budio budio, zone-tailed hawk, Budio abonotatus, and eastern buzzard, Budio japonicus, among others. The second grouping is the Accipitrini subfamily, also known as the true hawks. This includes species like the gabber goshawk, Micronissus gabber, long-tailed hawk, Urotriorchis macroris, lizard buzzard, Calpifalco monogrammicus, and the shikra, Tachyspiza badia. However, regardless of the specific subfamily or species, hawks are identifiable by their sharp angular looks, curved beaks, and fairly robust bodies, though they aren't as robust as eagles. They generally have smaller wings than eagles too, though their bodies are similarly suited to short, explosive flight. Hawks, of course, are pretty adaptable and opportunistic, like most of nature's top predators. Their famously sharp eyes never miss a thing, which is why highly perceptive people are said to have the eyes of a hawk. Human eyes have 200,000 photoreceptors, compared to a Beauty09 hawk's 1 million. Additionally, hawk eye receptors are attached to more nerves, and the elongated nature of the eyeballs afford the birds a longer focal length, allowing them to see much further away. In practice, hawks have 5 to 6 times better eyesight than humans, and they can spot tiny prey from tremendous distances. Hawks also tend to score higher than other raptors on the avian IQ test, which was invented by famous ornithologist Louis Lefebvre. Their intelligence is said to be on par with cats and dogs. They show remarkable levels of adaptability, improvisation, and puzzle solving, especially when food is involved. Hawks' near-global distribution proves that they are just as adaptable as eagles when it comes to habitat. That said, many Beauty09 hawks are better suited to wide-open areas, allowing them to soar and scout for prey with minimal obstruction. Because of this habitat preference, Beauty09 hawks have evolved larger wings and shorter tails than accipitrine hawks. Accipitrine hawks, on the other hand, are far more comfortable in woodland environments, relying on their exceptional visual acuity to spot prey in surroundings that provide camouflage. Hawks in this subfamily also have short, broad wings and long tails to facilitate short, agile flying between the trees. One major difference between hawks and eagles, though, is that hawks are largely migratory, while eagles tend to be territorial. Hawks migrate to warmer climes before winter sets in. As a whole, hawks go after a wide variety of smallish animals. They are largely generalist hunters, but a few species do specialize and have preferences for animals like snakes. Common prey includes rodents, lizards, snakes, other birds, fish, rabbits, and frogs. Various killing techniques are used, and most involve their needle-sharp talons and beaks. Prey can be impaled, slashed, clubbed, or dropped from the sky, depending on what the situation requires. Like eagles, hawks prefer gliding overhead before going in for the kill. Of course, despite their impressive hunting skills, hawks are not above scavenging the odd bit of carrion. They will bully smaller birds and steal free meat whenever they can. Scavenging is far more common in lean periods of the year or when raising chicks, which is a tall order for hawk parents. Like eagles and many other bird species, hawks parent cooperatively, and some species even mate for life. Chicks are entirely dependent on their parents for the first few months of their lives, but are ready to take wing at around 6 weeks old. Parents take turns going out to find food to bring back to their feathered bundles of joy. Like eagles, hawks are deeply embedded in many aspects of human culture. The word hawk has been used to name iconic warriors and leaders, and it is often applied in countless military contexts. For instance, leaders who are notoriously pro-war are often called war hawks. In most of their native ranges, the birds are renowned for their cunning, opportunism, and aggression. We also have the practice or sport of hawking, which is the use of hawks for hunting. Believed to have originated in Central Asia, hawking has been around for a few thousand years now. The birds are trained to go after any kind of prey they can tackle, with most hawkers preferring animals like hare. Hawks' intelligence, vision, trainability, and natural eagerness to hunt are the core reasons why they are so successful in hawking. What is the difference between bald eagles and golden eagles? Eagles, the lords and ladies of the skies that rule from on high, with millions of years of evolution backing up their status as airborne apex predators. The sheer number and distribution of eagle species globally are clear testaments to their success. Today, we're paying special attention to the bald and golden eagles, two of the most iconic species. What makes a bird a bald eagle? What makes it a golden eagle? Is it just a matter of hairstyle or coloration? Or is there more at play? Let's head to the skies and find out. Bald eagles. Like all eagles, the iconic bald eagle hails from the Accipitridae family of birds of prey, or raptors. This family is also home to hawks, kites, Old World vultures, and harriers. Bald eagles are known as Haliaeetus leucocephalus to scientists. There are two subspecies. The the northern bald eagle, Haliaeetus leucocephalus washingtonensis, and the southern bald eagle, Haliaeetus leucocephalus leucocephalus. The genus name, Haliaeetus, comes from the Greek word haliaetos, which translates to sea eagle. The species name, leucocephalus, is an amalgamation of the Greek words leukos, which means white, and kephali, which means head. In English, the word bald refers to the word's original meaning, having a white head, rather than its modern meaning of being hairless. Bald eagles are large birds typified by contrasting plumage. Most of the body is covered in dark brown feathers, while the neck and head have white feathers. The beak and feet are yellow, while the talons are black. Tail feathers are fairly long and wedge-shaped. Size varies quite a bit. Body length ranges from 28 to 40 inches, while wingspan is between 5 feet 11 inches and 7 feet 7 inches. Healthy adults weigh between 6.6 and 14 pounds. The species also has marked sexual dimorphism when it comes to size. Females can be up to 25% bigger than males. Chicks and juveniles have different plumage from their parents until they reach sexual maturity, which occurs at about 5 years. These youngsters have dark brown feathers all over, including the head, and they also sport pale whitish streaks and spots. Like all raptors, the bald eagle is equipped with deadly talons on each toe. Each foot has 3 front toes and 1 rear toe. When attacking, bald eagles put their weight on the front toes to hold prey in place, and then they use the rear talons to stab the victim, which causes damage or death and allows the birds to carry their quarry off. The bird also sports a sharp, powerful beak, which is also used to kill off prey and, of course, rip off meaty chunks of flesh. As sea eagles, these birds are specialists when it comes to hunting fish and other aquatic animals. Using their remarkable vision, they can spot prey below the water's surface before swooping in and snatching it. Seeing a bald eagle spotting and hoisting a fish out of the water is one of nature's ultimate sights, and it serves as clear evidence of why the birds are so successful. Besides fish, bald eagles will also go after water birds like ducks, as well as reptiles like juvenile alligators and turtles. Frogs and small mammals are also pursued. However, fish is the staple and makes up more than half of the species' diet. Birds make up about a third of what bald eagles eat, while mammals and other prey animals are less than 20% of the preferred menu. The majesty, gracefulness, and power of the bald eagle are some of the reasons it is such a massive cultural animal in North America. It is a powerful symbol of nobility, strength, and faithfulness in Native American cultures, and it is the United States' legendary national animal. You can find the bird on currency, sports team badges, company logos, military medals, tattooed arms, and much more. The eagles have a wide distribution throughout North America, with a range extending from northern Mexico to the far reaches of Alaska and Canada. Naturally, they live in habitats with access to sizable water bodies that can support them and their broods. Bald eagles are found along the coast, near rivers or lakes, marshes, and even swamps. According to research, bald eagles looking to breed favor lakes with surface areas of 4 square miles or more. Bald eagles can either be resident or migratory throughout this range. Food availability is the main factor that determines migration or residency. As a result, the northern subspecies is much more migratory than the southern because water bodies in its domain are far more likely to freeze and prevent it from hunting. Bald eagles from the warmer south hardly ever migrate and tend to settle in one area as residents. These raptors love perching and nesting in mature stands of hardwood trees. They are not overly picky about what specific kind of hardwood, though, and are instead more focused on whether the tree is solid enough, tall enough, and close enough to hunting grounds for their nesting needs. Mating usually occurs in late January to early February, which is also the time the birds build and reinforce their nests. Fun fact, the bald eagle builds the largest nest of any American bird, and the build quality of those nests is so good that they can be used for several years, with the help of minor renovations. Nests can be 13 feet deep, 8 feet across, and weigh a literal ton. Mate selection is not a frequent thing for bald eagles because they generally stick together and mate for life. They do try to find new mates if one partner dies or abandons the other, or if mating fails to bear fruit after several attempts. Like with most birds, it is the female that gets the final say on who she mates with. Males must engage in flight displays to impress the ladies, and these displays are quite something. The boisterous males soar, dive, and chase each other before locking talons and spiraling toward the earth, only to let go just before crashing. Once a male and female pair up, they establish a small territory along a chosen body of water before building nests and mating. Males and females take turns incubating and guarding nests, and they work together to raise chicks. In most cases, the female lays 1 to 3 eggs per breeding period. However, bald eagles very rarely manage to raise 3 chicks to fledgling, with 2 being the typical number. Sometimes, the eldest and largest chick may kill its siblings, which maximizes its own chances of being fed and cared for until fledgling. Golden eagle. The golden eagle, aka Aquila chryssatus, is another famous large eagle species. It is classified under the Aquila genus, a group known as true eagles. Generally, Aquila is more of a superficial grouping that includes 11 species of dark-colored eagles. When it comes to golden eagles, there are 6 recognized subspecies. We have the Iberian, European, Asian, Japanese, Siberian, and North American golden eagle. The subspecies vary when it comes to size and coloration, though they are quite comfortably large birds. Golden eagles can be between 26 and 40 inches long, with wingspans that are between 5 feet 11 and 7 feet 8 inches. Males weigh around 8 pounds on average, while females are around 11 pounds. The Asian or Himalayan subspecies is the largest of the lot, with males weighing up to 9 pounds and females weighing up to 14 pounds. The smallest subspecies, the Japanese golden eagle, has a weight range of 5.5 to 7.2 pounds. Like bald eagles, the golden species is largely dark brown. However, adults also have dark golden heads and a bit of whitish gray on the tail feathers and inner wings. The golden color of the head and boot feathers is where the bird gets its name. These eagles also have yellowish feet and toes, as well as a yellow beak that has a dark tip. The talons are usually black. Additionally, the golden eagle's feet have more pronounced boot feathers than those of the bald eagle. Chicks and juveniles are basically the same as their parents, though the feathers on their backs are a bit darker. In flight, as seen from below, the golden eagle has an ever so slightly V-shaped profile compared to the bald eagle's more straight wings. As you can probably already tell from the various geography-based subspecies, the golden eagle has a wide distribution. In fact, it is the world's most widely distributed eagle species and can be found in much of the northern hemisphere. In the Eurasian landmass, their range spans from the Mediterranean to the Russian Far East, China, and Japan. They are very rare in Western Europe, though they have healthy populations in the UK. In North America, golden eagles nest in the western half of the US and much of Mexico for most of the year. They only nest in Canada during the summer months. There are also small, scattered golden eagle populations in North Africa and the Middle East. Such a wide global distribution is possible because of the bird's relatively high habitat adaptability. They generally prefer to live near or in open areas, sparse forests, and mountain ranges deep in the wild. Golden eagles tend to avoid humans and areas with human activity, which is probably another reason they continue to thrive. However, they are not above scouting highways and garbage sites for roadkill and other easy pickings. Nesting often occurs in the cliffs of mountain ranges, wherever possible, and a mating pair may use several different cliffs and nests over the years. The birds are largely resident, but extreme winters can force northern birds to migrate south for better hunting grounds. Golden eagles are pretty territorial and are quick to squabble up if a rival individual or couple intrudes. Another key area where golden eagle adaptability shines through is diet. As a species, golden eagles actually have a menu that is an inversion of the bald eagles. Small mammals like hares and prairie dogs are the staple, followed by birds, reptiles, and lastly, fish. That said, golden eagles that happen to be near large bodies of water tend to have fish far more frequently than normal, a clear sign that this species is very much about opportunism. In mountain ranges, golden eagles have even been documented harrying and harassing ungulates like mountain goats and sheep into losing balance and falling to their deaths. Like most eagles, this species operates during the day when it can maximize its incredible eyesight to find food. Breeding and chick rearing are a two-parent endeavor as well. After males display their speed, guts, and reflexes in the air, females pick their bows, and the pair tends to stick together for life. Brood size is seldom more than 3 chicks, and it is usually two that complete the 3-month-long journey to fledgling.